This is the hearing for the nomination of District Court Justice Maureen Walsh to the Appeals Court of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts by Governor Baker. I'd like to welcome everyone here today, and I would like to first introduce all of the counselors. Counselor DiPaolo, Counselor Kennedy, Counselor Duff, Counselor Iannella.
Good morning.
Counselor Marilyn Devaney, Counselor Bob Jubenville, and
morning.
Counselor Joseph Ferrara. And I'm Mary Hurley, and I'm chairing this meeting. I'd like to welcome everyone here, and at this time, we are going to hear from those who wish to speak in favor of the nomination of Maureen Walsh to the Appeals Court. We're going to start with the Chief Justice of the District Court, Justice Paul Dolly. Are you ready, Justice Dolly?
He's always ready.
Good morning, Councilor Hurley, and good morning to the members of the Governor's Council.
Morning.
It's a privilege for me to be here this morning to testify in support of Judge Maureen Walsh's nomination to. Thank you. It's my privilege to testify this morning in support of Judge Maureen Walsh's nomination to the Appeals Court. For the past 13 years, I've worked closely with Judge Walsh in the District Court as a co-worker, colleague, and as a friend. I commend the Governor, Lieutenant Governor, and the Judicial Nominating Commission for her appointment to the Appeals Court. And just at the outset, I would like to recognize the Chief Justice of the Appeals Court, the Honorable Mark Green, is present. In addition, Judge John Payne, the First Justice of the Springfield District Court, and John Gay, the Clerk-Magistrate of Springfield District Court, are all present here today, and I just wanted to note that for the record. In my experience, Judge Walsh possesses superior legal skills, substantial trial experience, a tremendous work ethic, and the highest level of integrity. She's earned the respect of judges and lawyers throughout our system for her competence and professionalism. She's also earned the admiration of her friends and colleagues for her compassion, her kindness, and her decency. Her contributions to the district court have been simply outstanding. In addition to handling as a trial judge thousands of cases, her contributions have extended far beyond the courtroom. She serves as the Regional Administrative Justice for Region 6, which she oversees the administration of 12 courts in the four western counties, the 4 counties in western Massachusetts. She's the first justice in Northampton District Court. She formerly served as the first justice in Holyoke District Court. She is a mentor. She's a member of the District Court Probation Committee and the District Court Administrative Committee. She's also the presiding judge of the EACH program, the Emerging Adult Court of Hope for people ages 18 to 24 in the Springfield District Court. I've witnessed firsthand her handling of these major responsibilities with diligence and intelligence. Throughout her entire career, she has conducted her work in a professional and fair manner, a way that has promoted public trust and confidence in the system. She understands the impact of her decisions, the importance of her duties, knowing the impact that such decisions hold on the communities and the individuals whom appear before her. She's open-minded. She has consistently demonstrated impartiality, listening to many different viewpoints in order to reach a just result. Above all else, I would stress to you that she is extremely fair and honest in her dealings as a trial court judge. I respectfully submit to you that her professional and personal attributes make her an exceptional nominee to the appeals court. She possesses those qualities to serve very effectively on the appeals court. I support her nomination. I respectfully ask you to confirm her nomination. And I thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak here today.
Thank you very much, Judge Dolly. You've
Thank you.
continued to do a great job for a great number of years, and we appreciate your service as well. Is there anyone here who has a question for Judge Dolly?
I would just have a comment, Madam Chairwoman. I echo your sentiments, Chief. Thank you. I don't know a person that I've ever spoke to where your name was mentioned in a sentence and not with the word great missing from it. You're a great asset to the trial court. Appreciate your service, and hope you stay with us forever.
Thank you. I appreciate those comments. I'm really fortunate to work in a great court with some great colleagues.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Chief.
Anyone else have a question or a comment for Judge Dolly? Counselor Devaney?
Thank you. Thank you for coming in person. I like to see someone and look them in the eye. Thank you for all your service. I'm very proud of what you've done and what you're doing. Not an easy time to serve in this pandemic, is it? So you've known, Judge Walsh, how many years?
I think it's 13 years now.
13 years. So what is the one attribute that impresses you the most about her?
Her honesty. Her,
Yeah.
her frankness, her ability to evaluate situations in an honest and fair manner, her ability to listen and to be open-minded and fair-minded. Those are the attributes that stand out to me about Judge Maureen Walsh.
Working with her so closely, is there something that comes to mind, something that she presented, something that you could improve in the court or something you needed?
Well, I can think of a number of things in response to your question, but the one thing I would point out is that for a long period of time in the district court, Judge Walsh has been a point person on matters that relate to probation and recidivism reduction and ideas to develop to avoid people repeatedly coming into the court system. How can we reduce that level of recidivism and improve, at the same time, improving public safety, but improving people's lives? And Judge Walsh has spent a long time and really is a point person for our judges and clerk and probation officers to contact with ideas about those. Her participation in the Springfield, the court that I mentioned earlier, that court session is evidence of that in terms of her strong interest in helping young people in particular stay out of our system in the future.
Oh, that's great. Thank you so much. Your testimony means a lot to me.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for coming.
Thank you, counsel.
Anyone else have a question for Judge Dolly? Mr. Jubenville?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, Judge.
Morning.
I'm so glad that you became a judge. My ability to win cases was improved greatly when you and Judge Gaziano became judges, so I appreciate that very much.
We always enjoyed trying cases with you,
We did, yeah.
Counselor.
Yeah, you guys were great. Is there any move on in foot to close any courts that you know of?
In terms of the district courts?
Yeah.
I'm not aware of that. And I would, in fact, everything I know, and I think this sentiment is shared by the leaders of the court system, the community court structure is really important in terms of serving the public. And I would, we've discussed this publicly before, I would strongly oppose efforts to reduce the number of district courts because I think they provide valuable services and access to justice for the public in the 62 courts that we staff now. I'm not aware of that. There are some, so you might occasionally hear, well, this court is closed for a period of time. The only way courts are being closed right now is to increase the repairs to them. So I can think of a couple of courts where DCAM is actively working on repairing systems and windows and roofs. And in some instances, they urge us when that happens to close the court, send the court business elsewhere for several months till they can complete the work. But in terms of any long-term effort, I'm not aware of that at all.
Is there any, anything brewing about the Quincy District Court? Because that should be torn down. That is an absolute laboratory experiment.
I think DCAM has been clear that Quincy is a site, a priority site for a new courthouse. There's been, public meetings. DCAM's very involved. And I think at this point, the planning and design of a new courthouse there.
I was out in Pittsfield a couple of weeks ago, and I was told that they're having the court go into some sort of a hotel out there. And in Springfield, they're using the old Eastfield Mall.
Yes.
And I've heard some figures of millions of dollars being spent on these courts, temporary courts.
I can't comment on the cost. I don't have involvement in that. But the locations across the state, there are some outside court locations that are being temporarily used for jury trials to maintain social distancing and comply with CDC guidelines in order to allow us to resume jury trials, which is obviously crucial for the system to move forward. We need those sites to be able to convene jury trials. And so I do think it's a temporary situation. Certainly our goal is when it's healthy for everybody to resume jury trials in Springfield District Court, Pittsfield District Court. That is the goal.
Thank you. I reiterate what some of my colleagues said. I think you're a great chief, and don't retire, will you?
Thank you. I appreciate the compliment. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I have a comment, Counselor.
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Chief, I think you've done, or you are doing an outstanding job. Anytime I have a question, your office has been great. You have a great staff there, led by Sarah Adamson. She does a phenomenal job. You're doing a superb job, and I appreciate you coming before the council today. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Anyone else who has a question or comment? Well,
Thank you, Counselor.
this was starting to turn into the Judge Dolly show, but there's apparently no more questions or comments. Thank you for coming, Paul. We appreciate it, and you're excused.
Thank you, Counselor.
Next, we'll have Clerk-Magistrate of the Northampton District Court, Darren Alston.
Good morning.
Good morning. We can see you. He's appearing on Zoom or WebEx, and I invite you to proceed.
Thank you. The Honorable Governor's Council, thank you for allowing me to speak today on behalf of Judge Walsh. I've gotten to know Judge Walsh over the past several years as my role as the Clerk Magistrate. She currently serves as the Regional 6 Administrative Judge and First Justice of the Northampton District Court. I've been most impressed with Judge Walsh over the years because of her work ethic and professionalism. She has an amazing ability to articulate serious and challenging issues, pushing the dialogue to a more reflective and perceptive level, and possesses exceptional insight. Her talents, however, do not end there. Judge Walsh is also a person of unusual energy, constantly working, collaborating with the judges and the clerk magistrates on issues and solutions that would best serve the courts in this region. Judge Walsh understands that the court serves an important role in the community. She encourages team building approaches and has put forward initiatives that directly impact the community with a more positive approach initiative such as treatment courts for individuals struggling with addictions, veterans courts, and youth programs such as the Emerging Adult Court of Hope. Judge Walsh takes the time to fully listen to all persons that appear before her with patience. It takes an exceptional person to ensure that the court runs smoothly, to establish and maintain respect with all people it serves, and to juggle the constant pressures presented every day in the court. I know she will apply law accordingly and give full attention to the matters put before her. She would be firm when it's required, accommodating when it's all respectful law. I don't know her as not only a judge, but my friend. We speak almost daily. And I can always go in her office and share ideas. And she always comes into my office and shares her ideas. I am confident that you will be exceptional to the appeals court. And I thank you for your time. And I look forward to any questions you may have.
Thank you, Darren. It's good to see you again. It's been a long time.
Yeah.
But I very much
Yes.
enjoyed sitting in Northampton when you were up there. At this time, is there any of the counselors who have any questions? All right, hearing none. I'm sorry. I couldn't see you guys.
Okay, that's
Counselor
okay.
Devaney.
So tell me, how long have you been a clerk magistrate?
Counsel, I've been with the Northampton Court going into this is my 10th year, actually.
Wow. So what quality can you think of one quality out of the many for this judge, what she will bring to the appeals court?
Honesty.
A quality that you have
Response.
seen in the years you've worked with her.
Her honesty, her honesty, her respect, the way she treats not only the bar, she treats the people within the courts. She always has an open relationship with people in the courts. She comes in, she asks how they're doing. She always meets with just about everyone in the court. She's very approachable, and she is, the biggest thing is her honesty.
Oh, that's great. It's interesting that you and Judge Dolly, your first thought was honesty, and there's anything better than that. So thank you for your coming, for being a witness. I appreciate your testimony.
Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Jubinville.
Thank you. Good to see you, Mr. Clerk. I haven't seen you in a while. I haven't been out in Northampton Court in a while. It's one of my favorite courts. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, sir. How are you?
So I have a favor to ask of you.
Yes, sir.
When you're going to retire, will you let me know? Because I'm going to go after that job. Thank you very much.
I'll let you know, sir. All right.
Thanks for your support of this nominee. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who has any questions for Clerk Alston? Thank you very much for your testimony, and you're free to go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lastly, we'll hear from Assistant Clerk Magistrate of the Northampton District Court, Lucy Moran.
Good morning. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. As it's been mentioned, my name is Moran, the Assistant Clerk-Magistrate of Northampton District Court, and I'm actually a friend of the Honorable Maureen E. Walsh as well. So I first want to thank everyone for allowing me this opportunity to speak on behalf of Judge Walsh. I've had the honor of working with Judge Walsh at the Northampton District Court for approximately 2 years now, and during that time, she has clearly demonstrated her ability to actively listen to all defendants that stand before her in an effort to try to figure out why they've made the decisions that they did make, which led to them actually appearing before her. By way of example is her participation as a team member and the presiding justice of Springfield District Court's Emerging Adult Court of Hope session, which you all have been hearing about recently. Judge Walsh worked very closely with Camden County District Attorney Delaney and his department, the Springfield District Court's probation department, and the local organization to build a team that shared her passion for assisting this state's most vulnerable population, which is the youthful high-risk offenders. I was most honored when she asked me to join that team. Following recent research suggesting that the human brain doesn't fully develop until the age of 25, this very unique and first known to the state program was established to change the trajectory of youthful high-risk offenders. The Emerging Adult Court of Hope, in short, EACH, was then born. EACH was carefully and strategically designed to afford Judge Walsh and all team members an opportunity to truly dive into the lives of these high-risk youthful offenders and learn what has continues to occur in their lives, hindering their ability to live a positive and productive lifestyle. This is accomplished by having weekly pre-meetings to discuss each participant's individualized service plans, including but not limited to mental health counseling, employment, schooling, and general life skills. Each court session follows right afterwards, and this is where the true magic happens, in my opinion. I have personally witnessed individuals that were once afraid to be emotionally vulnerable open up to Judge Walsh and share their trials and tribulations, their stress factors and daily struggles, their interests or lack thereof, and their lifetime goals. This happens because Judge Walsh is a very unique individual herself. She is attentive, she's compassionate, nurturing, and impartial. It is these very qualities that make her relatable to each participant and allows them to feel safe and secure enough to open up to her, knowing that she truly does have their best interests at heart. When she must be stern and make tough decisions, I've witnessed these exact same individuals show much gratitude for her unconditional support and encouragement. Judge Walsh is a true leader. She is fair and impartial with a massive understanding of the law. She is very approachable and eager to share her knowledge of the same. It is for all these reasons that I fully support her nomination as Associate Justice of this state's appeal court. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions? Devaney, any questions?
Me? No, I appreciate you coming and now how long have you worked with the judge?
For 2 years.
How many?
2 years.
2 years, 2 years.
Correct.
So, were you an associate before this, or how long have you been working in that position?
I've been a trial court employee for a total of 14 years, and I've been Assistant Clerk-Magistrate for the Northampton District Court for 2 years. And prior to that, I was at Probate and Family Court.
So in your experience, is there something that stands out about this nominee that you didn't see as clearly with past people that you served with?
I hate to sound redundant.
No,
but
that's not a fair
I'm going
question,
to.
is it?
But I really, really appreciate and admire Judge Walsh's honesty. I think the way that she speaks to everyone and her personal background, everything she's gone through in life and her struggles allows her to have a full understanding of why some of these defendants come before her. So to me, I would definitely say her honesty is probably very unique in itself. And that's not to say that I haven't come across many amazing justices, but there's something very special with how she can relate to not just the general public, but these most vulnerable people that come before her during their most vulnerable times.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're
Your
welcome.
testimony means a lot. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions? Counselor Kennedy?
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank
And
you.
you're more than welcome to stay on and watch the rest of the proceedings.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here who wishes to speak in favor of the nominee? Hearing none, I would ask, is there anyone here who wishes to speak in opposition to the nomination of Maureen Walsh? Hearing none, at this time, I would invite the nominee, Justice Walsh, to give her presentation, and maybe before that, introduce the people who are here with you today who are a special part of your life. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Hurley. Here today with me is Chief Green, and to his left is my sister Eileen Walsh from West Roxbury. To her left is my spouse, Laura Carey. And behind Laura is Chief Paul Dolly of the District Court. And to his right is the First Justice of the Springfield District Court, my friend John Payne. And to his right is the Clerk-Magistrate of the Springfield District Court, John Gay, who today celebrates his 10th year being appointed Clerk-Magistrate on this very day.
I want to welcome my good friend, Justice John Payne, and my good friend, John Gay, both of whom I had the pleasure of serving with as a judge. And we appreciate all the folks who are here today. Would you now please present your opening?
Thank you, Counselor Hurley. I'd like to thank this honorable council for the opportunity to be considered for the position of an Associate Justice of the Massachusetts Appeals Court. I would like to thank Governor Charlie Baker, Lieutenant Governor Karen Polito, all of the members of the Judicial Nominating Commission, especially retired now Justice Judd Carhart, Chief Legal Counsel Bob Ross, and Executive Director of the JNC, Lauren Green-Petrino, for their professionalism throughout this process. And last but not least, I would like to thank my family. As I indicated, my sister Eileen is here with me, and there are many others due to COVID who are back home and watching it on YouTube. So I can tell you that this process has been a very humbling experience going through this process. And 22 years ago, I sat in this chair as Governor Paul Cellucci nominated me for the parole board. Counselor O'Brien was the counselor for the region. Counselor Iannella was there the first time, and shortly thereafter, Counselor Devaney joined the Governor's Council. So now, years later, to be before you again is somewhat unreal and something I value very much. I believe this is my 5th time before the Governor's Council. My hope is that after careful consideration of my experience and equally important, my character, that you will support my nomination to the Appeals Court. I've been extremely fortunate in my life for so many reasons, but the number one reason I am here before you is that I was blessed to be born the youngest of 8 children to my parents, John D. and Catherine T. Walsh. My father was a school teacher in Brookline. My mother stayed home with all 8 of us with no car. He was a saint. They raised us to have a hard work ethic, to get along with others, to be disciplined, to treat everyone with respect, and they always emphasized the value of education. So because of them, I've been able to succeed in many opportunities that I've been given. I've also been extremely fortunate to have met Laura Carey 25 years ago, who, short and sweet, is my whole world. So between Laura and my sisters, I have been living and learning in an environment of strong, supportive, and intelligent women. There is, of course, family that you're born to, and then other people of extended family that you meet in your life, and I've been so fortunate to have so many of them. But when I applied to the appeals court almost a year ago, I asked my chief court officer, Franklin Torres, if he would be a reference in my JNC application. He and I have been close since I was appointed a judge in 2008, and we worked together for years in Holyoke. We were lucky to have been able both to land later in the Northampton courthouse. He as the chief and me as a presiding justice about 3 years ago. He worked his way up through the ranks as an entry-level court officer to an assistant court officer to the chief. And I watched that and supported him throughout. His only request, half jokingly, when I asked him, he had a big smile on his face. He said, "Of course, Judge, I'll be a reference, but you gotta take me with you." So on a beautiful Sunday day, this March 25th, it wasn't supposed to be this warm. And Frankie took out his prized possession, his motorcycle that he was so proud of. He's a loving husband and father of 3 beautiful children, and he was killed in a motorcycle accident. And so today, at the Holyoke District Court, I have a picture of Frankie, because I promised him that I'd take him wherever I went. So when I graduated law school, I did have the great fortune to work for United States District Court Judge Michael Ponzer, who to this day I still consider a friend and a mentor. As his law clerk, I learned firsthand the importance of legal research, clear and concise writing, and having a high standard for work product. It was early in my legal career I learned to appreciate the importance of creating and crafting an opinion that supports something that is clear, understandable, and just gets it right. So I learned that it's one thing to express your decision verbally. It's quite another thing to write it. In that process of writing, you examine and re-examine your thought process, and when words are put to paper, it clearly shows the weaknesses, the strengths, and the gaps. It's a painstaking process to do this. Writing and rewriting and crafting a decision is something that I've always found both incredibly rewarding and difficult. Still to this day, I remember as a law clerk, the first case I worked on, it had to do with a patent for a refrigerated sofa sectional that you could never leave your couch, and you could open it up and put whatever beverages that you chose. And apparently this was a hot seller because there were 2 patent attorneys, one from New York City and one from Washington, DC, that argued the complexities of patent law. To me, it didn't matter whether it was a sectional couch and a refrigerated section. It was fascinating to learn all about patent law from some of the experts in the field, and then to work on the motion for summary judgment. And that's how it was. Every new case brought with it an opportunity for me to educate myself on a new subject matter and be a better lawyer. And I imagine that in the appeals court, the same thing happens. From there, I was an assistant district attorney for a little less than 4 years. And I learned the ropes of being a prosecutor in the district court, representing the Commonwealth on all aspects of practice. That taught me to stand on my own 2 feet and present a compelling argument to the court or to a jury. And I always appreciated the role of a prosecutor, and especially in today's society, to ensure that compliance with all ethical requirements, but also probably the most important lesson I learned was to give people a break when they needed it, to give people a second chance, sometimes is the best form of justice. As several of you know, I had the opportunity to work at the parole board for 10 years of my career, including 5 as the chairwoman. I gained insight into substance abuse, mental health, and criminal behavior. For years, I've studied criminal behavior and the best ways to reduce recidivism. There, I often voted in panels of 3 or 7 In this experience, listening to others' points of view, trying to persuade them of yours, and taking time to be open-minded enough to change your mind when you're convinced by others was a meaningful experience, and again, one that I would hope would be a benefit if appointed to the appeals court. And finally, for the past 12 years, I have served with honor as a justice of the district court for Chief Paul Dawley. I was the presiding justice of Holyoke for 8 years, and now in Northampton for the past 3. I've also served as a regional administrative justice and, as you know, on committees including substance abuse and mental health. I've also worked hard to create several specialty courts, including the Western Mass Veterans Treatment Court, the Treatment Court in Northampton, a program called Changing Lives Through Literature, and then my favorite, the Emerging Adult Court of Hope in Springfield. These experiences have shown me that our perspectives and views about what justice is and how we go about delivering justice is an evolving process. I just want to take a very short moment to talk about the Young Adult Court. It does recognize the science of brain development in young people and that the brain continues to develop in a person until their 20s. During that time, young people have a difficult time controlling themselves and even understanding the long-term consequences of their actions. So we deal with the high risk, I call them kids, 18 to 24. It focuses on trauma-related counseling, cognitive behavioral therapy, intensive probation, and then instead of just a job, creating career opportunities for these young men and women. And then to prevent a conviction from being such a lifetime barrier, the District Attorney Anthony Galoni, is willing to expunge the record upon successful completion of this program. I have to credit District Attorney Galoni in particular, as well as the ROCA organization, Christine Judd and the Springfield probation officers, and all the team. DA Galoni hasn't missed a meeting, and he fully supports and believes in this court. I'll just highlight one participant, Antonio. Shows great promise. He's striving to be a CDL driver. So we're working with him on some of the foundational blocks, like showing up to work on time and reducing and then eliminating his use of marijuana. So it is the culmination of my past experiences coupled with my years as a trial court judge that I believe will make me a valuable addition to the appeals court. I have sat in the courtroom countless hours and made thousands of decisions, big and small. The district court's jurisdiction, as you know, is so vast and big. And in every district court, you could start your day with a substance abuse or mental health petition and then go on to civil matters and on to criminal matters. My hope is that my common sense approach and experience would add value to the already impressive and talented men and women who sit on the appeals court. My hope is that more district court experience will strengthen an already strong court. I want to thank all of you for your consideration, and I welcome any questions that you may have.
Thank you. We're going to start with Counselor DiPaolo. Do you have any questions?
I do. Thank you very much. Good morning. It's a pleasure to have met you in person today. Congratulations on your nomination.
Thank you, Counsel.
I just want to touch on a few points that we were able to talk about prior to this hearing and that emerged from some of the comments we've heard from your witnesses and from you this morning. So the Emerging Adult Court of Hope is amazing. The more I looked into it upon learning about your nomination. So I wonder if I could ask a little bit about your perspective on that. Do you believe that the age of juvenile jurisdiction should be raised?
I think that's a question for the legislature. I know that when it was changed from 17 to 18, it took some of our cases, but I do believe that opportunities in the district court with 18 to 24-year-olds provides an appropriate place to rehabilitate.
Mm-hmm. And that's from the perspective of the science on brain development that you spoke of, correct?
It is.
And we had a chance to talk about a case, a recent case decided by the SJC, where the underlying issue was a juvenile being held in contempt. And I'm wondering, based on your knowledge of brain development, based on your knowledge of trauma-informed care, How would you use your discretion around a young person, an emerging adult, showing signs of lack of impulse control or otherwise manifesting behavior that's predictable, and perhaps I'm wondering how you'd use your discretion considering issues such as contempt?
So I can say in my 13 years as a judge, I've never held anybody in contempt or even threatened it. But I will say that part of what I hope to come across is somebody who puts people at ease, whether it's lawyers arguing or somebody in the audience. But Councilor DePaula, you can see it almost like a volcano starting to erupt, and the person's squirming in their seat, or they're starting to move, or just getting twitchy. And sometimes it's just bringing them up to the sidebar and saying, you're having a tough time. Take a deep breath, and I'm going to get to you. And sometimes it's letting them pace around a little bit, which might not be considered formal in a court, but sometimes will reduce their stress levels. And sometimes with outbursts, it's a teaching moment. So I always say, I address you as sir or ma'am. I expect the same respect, and I expect you to treat me the same way I'm treating you. And I don't want to punish them. I want to try to show them that there's another way to express their frustration.
And I'm so happy to hear that perspective and that level of trauma-informed knowledge that you bring to this role and you bring to your current role. And I think it's so important. And just two other questions. We had occasion to talk about racial disparities in our justice system. And I wonder if you could talk about what you think the best way for the judiciary to address it in the small role they have to impact this, maybe large role.
It definitely is a role. And I would say that it's unbelievable to me that Chief Justice Gantz saw this issue and addressed it head on. What a powerful statement and what a brave thing to do, to look inside of our own organization. And I know as judges, always pride ourselves on trying to be open-minded and fair and impartial. But racial bias exists, and exists in probably so many, if not every facet in organization. The district court has done a phenomenal job under the leadership of Chief Justice Dolly and Regional Administrative Justice Stacey Forts to create opportunities, trainings. We have a bench card that I have right there on the bench, and some of the very simple things like taking a moment, don't act in judgment, start to look at your own cases and see if there's any pattern of discrimination. And to the very complex things like changing the jury instructions. We used to have jury instructions that would say, you can judge a person and consider the way that they look, they talk, their intelligence or not. It's gone on for years. And now we have a specific instruction on implicit bias that tells the jurors, I have implicit bias. We all do. And that you need to be aware of it and check it to make decisions that are based on fairness and justice.
And as far as it concerns diversity of perspectives in the judiciary, would you commit yourself to mentoring underrepresented groups, in particular women and attorneys of color as they're coming up?
Be honored to.
I had a great conversation with you prior to this hearing. I think your perspective is exactly what we need in our courts, and I'll be very happy to support you when we vote at our assembly.
Thank you, Counselor. It's meaningful to me.
Thank you very much. At this time, I'll call on Counselor Kennedy.
Counselor Kennedy stepped out for a court hearing. He'll be back shortly.
Thank you very much for the information. Counselor Duff.
Thank you very much, Counselor Hurley. It's great to, where'd the judge go? Oh, they showed me Kennedy. How are you doing, Judge Walsh?
I'm holding my own. Thank you, Counselor Duff.
You are holding your own indeed, and I put you through the steps during our very lengthy conversation.
I enjoyed
But
it.
I very much enjoyed it, and I very much have enjoyed your writing. And as many people know, I talk about writing a lot because I think it's very, very important, particularly as you may be ascending to the appeals court and many, many great issues that you'll be sitting on. What do you think has been one of the biggest takeaways from being a sitting judge during the pandemic, and something that you've learned from it, maybe something that we can take with us to do better or employ, going forward?
I've just been impressed and thankful of the leadership in a very short time. We were only closed for 2 days. As an organization, we went from always doing things in person to quickly learning that technology can be extremely helpful, not only now during the pandemic, but going forward for the practice of law and for the administration of justice. But I think people really rallied to the cause, and they gave even more as public servants. There are people in clerks' offices that work till 6:30 or 7 o'clock at night because things take longer. But I think the commitment of the trial court employees, to me, has been the most satisfying in this time of the pandemic.
That's really lovely to hear. I do think that one of the silver linings will be the embracing of technology to really implement access to justice in ways that we hadn't thought about before. And so there are always, it's great when people can be in a place in person, but it doesn't always work. And being able to employ the technology, frankly, can help people move the dockets more quickly in some cases. And so I do think that's something I've heard over and over again. But your compliment to the staff in the courts, thank you for that, because I do think that their work is under-recognized at times. And, people are always very willing and able to throw criticism, but they're not always willing and able to say, job well done, and thanks for going above and beyond. What do you think will be your biggest challenge going to the appeals court?
I think she said Mark Green, but no.
He and I have a truce, so I think that doesn't count.
So in my career, Counselor Duff, I have watched giants. I mean, Appeals Court Justice Buono, Appeals Court Justice Kinder, Appeals Court Justice Mead and Nyman. I actually hired Patty Malone, who's an Appeals Court permanent law clerk, Justice Carhart. I think my biggest challenge will be living up to their standards.
Yeah, there are some great minds. There are some really great minds on the appeals court.
And Appeals Court Justice Catherine Hand, too, who is unbelievable.
Yep, there are some great minds. We're very lucky in this Commonwealth that we have that. What do you think has been the most challenging issue that you've faced as a district court judge?
I wish I could do more to help. So you can see people who come before you and you try with, sometimes in the district court, because we have the most volume, and whether it's people facing evictions or people suffering from mental health or people engaging in criminal behavior. I think the challenge is every day to do better.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things I've heard about you from many, many people. that you do strive for excellence, and I appreciate that. I'm not going to belabor this conversation because you and I really spoke in quite a bit of detail, and I think you have a very good sense of where I stand on a lot of these issues, and really social and economic justice. And I think Councilor DiPaolo echoed many of the feelings that I have when he said, you're the type of judge that we need right now. Just the fact that you're talking about implicit bias and the recognition that each of us, through just the color of our skin, and in the fact that we have had privilege of opportunity, and in my case, education and an intact family, it's a gift that we've been given just through chance. And I strongly believe that as elected officials, as judges, as people in government, that we have to hold ourselves to a higher standard and do better. And I do think that you concur with that thought, in your words. Your actions have certainly matched your words. So it's a pleasure to see your nomination, and I'm sure you will do very well. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Counselor Duff. I would indicate that I'm going to call on Counselor Kennedy next. However, I'm also told that the Lieutenant Governor will be here momentarily. So, Counselor Kennedy, you may question the nominee, but be prepared to be interrupted. Thank you.
Thank you. I apologize. I had to step out. I actually had a scheduled 11:15 trial readiness conference on Suffolk Superior. You know how judges can get a little testy when you're not there.
I've heard that.
You heard that? Yeah. But anyway, it's good to see you. Put your parole board hat on in a minute. How many years were you on the parole board?
10,
10. You do some commutations during that time?
a few,
And pardons?
many,
How often would you push pardons through?
very often.
What about commutations?
Not so often, but in exceptional circumstances, given the high standard, some.
You know how many we've had of pardons and commutations in the last 20 years?
I think I know the answer.
Almost none. It's kind of sad, isn't it?
I think it's complex, but it's sad for those people.
You would agree with me, based on your experience on the parole board, that it's something that should be relief that's available to people in a meaningful way. I don't have a lot of questions for you. We talked on the phone, and everything that I've heard about you has been A+ in terms of your performance out both on the parole board and in the district court. I don't unfortunately get out to that area very often, occasionally, but not recently. And I try to avoid it because I'm not really fond of the Mass Pike. It's an all-day affair every time I do go out there. You have great witnesses. Your counselor has been a big fan. She worked with you for a while and had many good things to say about you. So I'll be voting for you next week. I have no issues with you.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Again, I'm waiting for a text to say that the LG is on our way down. So in the meantime, Councilor Ferrara, do you have any questions?
I do. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. We also had extensive conversations on the phone. I appreciate your indulgence. To subject yourself to this board again is quite remarkable. Congratulations. Sorry to hear about your friend, the chief court officer. I know when we spoke a couple of weeks ago, he had just passed, and it's very sad, very, very sad. And you and I talked about something that's been on my mind recently, and that's about police training. And I want to thank you for your service as a police officer, as an ADA, someone on the parole board, as a judge. That's incredible, remarkable public service. So thank you. And I'd like to just pick your brain on a couple of things. And one of the things you and I discussed was how we train our police officers. Now, in 1985, I went to the police academy, and the state police took over for the first time ever, training local police officers. And it was regimented, and it was hard, and they ran in and tipped over desks and screamed and yelled at you and made you stand at attention and do crazy things to you for 21 weeks. But now it's 36 years later. And I know someone that was, and quite honestly, you and I discussed it, somebody who attended and was thrown out of the court office academy recently, just within the last 2 weeks. And I question, and I want to know your feelings about it, on how, and listen, I was chief of police for 9 years. I was on the executive board of the Mass Chiefs. I was president of the Mass Chiefs Association, overseeing 95 cities and towns. I want to know what your thoughts are on how we train our police officers, how we train our court officers these days. Do you think there's a correlation between the training they're receiving at the academy and how they should perform on the streets? Do you have any thoughts about that, since you've been in law enforcement and judiciary system for your entire life?
Thank you, Councilor Ferrer. I also have the distinct honor, my sister Marianne was one of the first female state troopers, and my spouse, Laura Carey, retired 2 years ago from the Massachusetts State Police.
Thank you for your service, trooper.
And I think training is essential, and I think it does correlate to how a person knows how to act. I think they need to be trained in restraints, because at times they are our first line of defense, right? But it has to be done in a way that is respectful, that treats everyone fairly, and treats people with dignity.
Do you think, and stories I've heard as of late, assaultive behavior on the recruits, demeaning, berating, going to their cars at 5 o'clock at night only to be put through 2 more hours of calisthenics, getting on all fours, crawling across parking lots, getting screamed at? Do you think that correlates into making a good court officer?
Respectfully, Counselor Ferrer, in my opinion, it does not.
You know anything about the qualifications of the people that design these programs or the people that oversee these programs?
I can't profess that I'm familiar with the trial court's requirements for qualifications and experience to train the incoming court officers.
Have you heard complaints about the training of court officers or police officers?
I have heard some complaints recently.
Are you aware of any investigations going into the training of these court officers or police officers?
And I'm not trying to deflect the answer, Counselor Ferrer, but the trial court security is separate and distinct from my role. And so I would not be made aware, even if there was an investigation happening.
You
Excuse
think it's
me.
incumbent upon the trial court to do investigations when they come to learn of these allegations?
Absolutely. It's part of our responsibility.
I know when I was
mean-
chief, drilled
I don't mean-
into my skull was, what did you know? When did you know it? What did you do about it? And if there is such an investigation, do you think that should be open to the public?
Absolutely. We need transparency.
I'm sorry, was someone trying to
Excuse
interrupt me?
me.
Yes.
I know you're on a roll, Counselor Ferrara, but the Lieutenant Governor is coming in.
I'll be glad to continue later. Thank you.
Yes, that's fine. Judge Walsh,
you.
you can stay where you are, or you can move about the chamber, but I suggest you don't leave, because this will probably be a short assembly, but we have to have it.
Lieutenant Governor's walking in right now.
Lieutenant Governor's walking in. Welcome, Lieutenant Governor.
It is still morning. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Councilor Hurley, Councilor Duff. Ella.
Good morning.
This is our assembly. We're calling it to order, and I recognize Councilor Ferreira for our prayer and pledge today.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. I would just like a moment of silence and a prayer for those in a position of authority in government and in the private sector to address the atrocities that we've seen throughout the world recently regarding COVID, and pray that everyone in a position of power can do the best they can do to help address this worldwide tragedy. Thank you. Pledge allegiance To the flag.
Flag
States
of the
of
United States of America,
To the
and
republic.
to the republic
Which stands.
for which it
One nation,
stands,
under God.
under God,
Indivisible.
indivisible,
With
with
liberty
liberty and
for all.
justice for all.
Thank you all very much for your time today. I do see Chief Justice Green and Chief Dolly. I know I don't recognize everyone with your face coverings on. Thank you for being here. Judge Payne, Magistrate Gay, thank you very much for coming in today and for being part of this process. I would like to recognize Counselor Devaney for a motion to record advice and consent for the financial warrant.
Second. So moved.
Second.
Second.
There is a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 I recognize Counselor Jubenville for a motion to record advice and consent for the pending list of notaries, public, and justices of the peace.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you. And I recognize Counselor DiPaolo for a motion to record advice and consent for the appointment of Courtney Price to the position of Clerk-Magistrate of the Leominster District Court.
Thank you. This is an outstanding nominee, and I happily offer that motion.
Second.
Discussion?
Yes.
This is the
Counselor Devaney.
nominee. In my 21 years, I was very impressed with this nominee. And I will not vote for someone 40 years old. But there are exceptions, and she is the one exception on the rule. And I think that she brings life experience to the bench that other people with more years than she has doesn't have. So I think she's going to be a wonderful person on the bench. I think that she has the compassion and the empathy that I look for, and she brings experience that I look for too. Thank you.
Okay, we may begin the roll call.
Counselor Kennedy,
Yes.
Counselor DiPaolo,
Yes.
Counselor Hurley,
Yes.
Counselor Pereira,
Yes.
Counselor Jubenville,
I give my advice and consent.
Counselor Devaney,
Yes.
Counselor Iannella,
Yes.
Counselor Duff.
Yes,
Go, Governor.
Thank you all very much. We have a new nomination today. Honor Siegel has been nominated to the position of Associate Justice of the District Court. Counselor Iannella? This is
Yes, I will
for you to schedule.
speak with the nominee today, and we will schedule it as soon as I have that conversation with the nominee.
Okay. That's great. Thank you very much for scheduling the date and time. I want to conclude by thanking Councilor Ferreira for his prayer regarding the COVID and the pandemic. And I want to invite all of you to join us in encouraging people to become vaccinated. It's safe, and it's a way that you can protect yourself and family. And it's a way also that we can move forward into the new normal and get back to the joys of what we love so much about our community, our Commonwealth, and our lives. So thank you for your continued efforts here in the Commonwealth as we lead the way for vaccine rollout.
Lieutenant Governor?
rollout.
Lieutenant
Yes,
Governor?
Councilor Devaney.
There are a lot of injustices, and I can't cite them all. But I have written letters to you, to the governor, to his council, and get no reply. I have mentioned it here, and I'm going to continue. I don't know this woman, but I've heard such wonderful things about her character, her caring, her compassion. And she has worked in the Clerk-Magistrate's office in Air for 14 years. And she's been the acting Clerk-Magistrate. So when the Clerk-Magistrate left this past year, she applied. Everyone was so happy. They called me, they told me what a wonderful person she was. And guess what? She got a letter, you are not getting an interview. I want to know why. There's a lot of others that I could bring up, but that one is the most egregious. And I will keep asking until I get an answer, because you know why? There is no answer.
Councilor Devaney, there was a reply July 7th, 2020, and a further reply enclosing that letter and a letter addressed to you May 4th of 2021. And Attorney Ross is available to answer any of your questions.
I'd like to make a correction. I got one letter from Mr. Dacia, very sarcastic, was 2 sentences. You have to see the attorney for the governor. You know, it's very easy to be disrespected in this position. Where do I go? Where do I go?
Thank you. That concludes our business today. I want to thank you all for your continued hard work and your efforts. Be safe, be healthy, and help us get others vaccinated. Thank you. That concludes our business.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor,
Thank you.
for all your efforts. All right, we're going to return to the hearing. I'd invite Justice Walsh to take her seat again. Or actually, it's 11:45. Why don't we take a 5-minute break? Let everybody have a stretch. We'll come back into session at 11:55. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Will all remaining counselors on the line please hold for a break? Please do not leave the call. Thank you.
Have you applied for disability before? And what's going to medically keep you out of work today? Is there anything going on with your back? Well, so you can still apply for a disability thing with mental health issue, but it's going to be a lot easier to prove. And we don't specialize in mental health. Are you doing treatment on your back right now? Is it going to be primarily mental health? Yeah, so it sounds you're talking with your surgeon on the board. Is it to like discuss some possible surgery or schedule something? What's the diagnosis for your spine? Right. Well, I'll try and keep it really simple. Are you on any pain medications currently? When was the last time they gave you pain meds?
All right, we're going to start again. If everybody could take their seats, please.
And that was the most recent back procedure they had. Have you done any treatment leading up to this visit?
Hello?
Within the last like 6 months. Last year.
Hello?
When were you last employed?
Adam?
He's a good man.
All right.
Counselor Ferrara?
How long are you working there for? Were you working before this job?
We can hear you, Counselor. They're coming in shortly.
Okay, thank you.
Working at Costco.
All right, I'm gonna go around the troops. I'll be right back.
2015, you say?
What did he say?
He's going to corral everyone to get seated.
Oh, thank you.
Why did you stay out of work between 2015 and 2018? Other surgeries besides those stimulators?
Would all remaining counselors in the chamber please take their seats? Thank you.
All right, is nominee Walsh back? I'd like to call the meeting back to order, please. Adam, can you put some cameras on? Hello, Counselor Walsh. Justice Walsh.
Would all remaining counselors in the chamber please take their seats? We'll be beginning shortly.
We're going to be beginning right now. Counselor Ferreira, are you ready? Can't. Counselor Ferreira, are you ready? Counselor Duff, good to see you again.
Ready?
It's always good to see you, Counselor.
It's good to be seen these days.
I know, and I saw the little puppy.
Yes.
I want to see
Council Hurley,
it
we're
again.
gonna need you to be physically
Okay.
present to take control of this crowd sometime. Like, I can't
Well,
get him to
that's
sit
why-
down.
That's why I have you as Sergeant of Arms.
All right,
Counselor
thank you.
Mary and I are gonna
Terry.
be there, and you guys aren't gonna know what hit you.
Terry, Bob, Marilyn. The chairwoman is calling us to order.
You may begin your questioning.
Here.
All right, so we're going back to where we left off, and I only have a few other questions. And we're talking about how they run court officer academies and police academies. And my question, I guess, is at the end of the day, if a person wants to be a court officer or a person wants to be a police officer, should they have to subject themselves to this disdain and belittlement and this rigorous things that they do to them, and sometimes assaultive things? Does a person give up their constitutional rights? Can they agree to be subjected to this? Do they have to agree to be subjected to this in order to get these public jobs?
Counselor, I believe that everybody should be treated with dignity and respect.
How do we protect those who just graduated? Let's say there's an investigation. People are reluctant. They're on probation for the first 9 months or a year. They're reluctant to tell the truth because they don't want to lose their 30-year career with the court system. How do we protect those people to tell them, you tell the truth and you're not going to be retaliated against? How do we do that?
I think we need leaders to stand up, speak out against those types of acts, and to make sure that they know that they tell the truth, that they'll be protected, and that they'll be treated fairly.
Do you think that the way these academies are run could violate someone's Massachusetts or federal constitutional rights as a cadet?
I have never witnessed the Court Officer Academy, but I know firsthand, when I was a law clerk to Judge Ponzer, there were quite a few recruits who filed a federal lawsuit for such things as failing to give them water, and one ended up having a severe kidney infection and almost lost his life. And there were many constitutional challenges.
Do you think that the trial court academy is subject to the hazing statute?
The anti-hazings, I believe that they would be required not to participate in any type of hazing, what could be construed as hazing.
Thank you. I really appreciate your honesty and your answers to my questions regarding this today. I think you have a phenomenal resume. Counselor Hurley early on told me I better vote for you, otherwise she'll never talk to me again. And Neil Shering from the Housing Court down in Brockton called me yesterday and said, what a wonderful person you are, what a great mentor you were back in the day, as they say. And he truly thinks you're going to be a great appeals court judge. You certainly have my support next week, and I know you're going to do great things. So thank you for, again, your lifetime of public service.
Thank you, Counselor.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam
There's no way
Chairwoman.
I'd ever stop talking to Counselor Ferreira, for the record. Counselor Jubenville, do you have any questions, sir?
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, let me just tell you that, you know, I've met you many times, and I think you did a wonderful job as a judge and are still doing a wonderful job. You did wonderful for the city of Hoyoke, my hometown. People speak to me of you out there. You did a lot of good for people in that city. So I'm going to vote for you. That's not an issue. I will tell you that. I usually don't say that up front, but I'm going to say it to you because I think you're more than qualified. I do have some questions for you, though. You mentioned the racism issue and Judge Gant's, the Harvard report. Let me just read a couple of brief things for you and ask you to comment. This is from the report, according to 2016 data from the Massachusetts Sentencing Commission, 655 of every 100,000 Black people in Massachusetts are in prison. Um, 82 of its whites of 100,000 out of 100,000 white people. Those are really, really divergent figures. How can it be 82 out of 100,000 white people and 655 people out of 100,000 for Blacks? Oh, the commission studied everything from poverty, education, two-parent homes, international shortages, all kinds of issues to try and come up with an answer to this difference. The answer they came up with was one word: racism. No other reason but racism. And they said it was always racism. And in my view, it's still racism today. You well, it's racism. So the question is how it changes. How does the court change? My view is that racism seeped in over 100, 200 years into our court system. It's in the fiber of our court system, in a lot of other institutions. So the question is, how do you stop that? Or is there an answer to stop it? Change it.
Counselor Jubenville, I wish I had the answer.
Here's one thought. All of those people that are incarcerated, got there because a judge sent them there. They didn't get there for any other reason. So does that tell us that judges in Massachusetts are racist?
Respectfully, no.
Then how do we have this discrepancy?
So complicated, and I don't pretend to know the answers. I know we don't control the front door. So who police decide to arrest, to give breaks to not give breaks to, has an effect upon who we see, which we can't control. The legislature, in making certain offenses punishable by mandatory minimum sentences or otherwise, has an effect on our ability. I'm not saying that we're without responsibility to this public health issue. We are. But I think that part of what we need to do is what I promised Councilor DiPaolo and what I've been striving to do for quite a long time is to increase the diversity. And I know the trial court has made great efforts to increase the diversity so that it represents the community. I think that would make a step and be a major step in the right direction. And I also think that we need to have some very hard and difficult conversations about the issue of race. And we need to take a good, hard look at ourselves. And even if we're intentionally believing that we're doing everything according to the law, I think we need to look at the results. The results, those numbers tell a story. I think we need to change the story.
Let me just read you a little bit more here. What they found is the criminal justice system is unequal on every level. Cops in the state are more likely to stop black drivers. Police are more likely to search or investigate black residents. Law enforcement agents charge black suspects with infractions that carry worse penalties. Prosecutors are less likely to offer black suspects plea bargains or pretrial interventions. Judges sentence black defendants to longer terms in prison. And get this, the average white felon in Massachusetts Department of Corrections has committed more severe crime than the average black inmate. It's not that black people are criminals. It's that cops think black people are criminals. Black suspects don't get bail. The average bail is slightly higher in cases involving black defendants. Furthermore, more black and Latinx defendants are detained without bail as compared to white defendants. Black people are charged with higher offenses. But curiously, when they get to court, black defendants are convicted of charges roughly equal in seriousness to their white counterparts, despite facing more serious initial charges. There are actually two separate systems. Study notes that prosecutors are more likely to exercise their discretion to send black and Latinx people to superior court, where the available sentences are longer. And separate sentences. If you're black and you're charged with crimes carrying a mandatory minimum, you are substantially more likely to be incarcerated and receive longer sentences. Especially if they find drugs or guns on you. Black and Latinx people charged with drug offenses and weapons offenses are more likely to be incarcerated and receive longer incarceration sentences than white people charged with similar offenses. The average black person's sentence is 168 days longer than a sentence for a white person. So if we know that it's somewhat having to do with policing, why aren't our judges more keen on that? Why aren't they looking at that differently than they normally would?
Well, again, I respectfully disagree. I think the majority of judges are very aware, not only of the study, but of the national issue of racism in our communities. I think we have our work cut out for us, Counselor, but I think we're making honest efforts. And I think that we need to have these conversations and we need to change our policies to reflect inequities. And I am committed to that.
I know you are, and I don't mean to speak to you as the person doing this, because you're not that way at all as far as I'm concerned. But I don't see, I go to a lot of courts all over the Commonwealth, and I don't see a lot of change in some of these issues that were raised by this study. I don't know, I think there is there mandatory programs that judges have to go to?
I can speak for the district court, and on a yearly basis, we're educated and on the issues of racism. I know that the trial court has another very important committee, but it's constantly something that we talk about, that we learn from others, and that we try to make adjustments and improvements, but we have a long way to go.
So, you know, when you're in court as a judge or a lawyer or a DA, as a defendant there, and you ask to see his record, and the judge wants to see his record, I want to see it. And that's been going on since 43 years I've been a lawyer, and when I even was on state police, the same thing. But I start thinking differently about it recently and reading these reports. I ask myself, why do we do that? Why do we look at somebody's record? I was told by many people, judges and other people through this system over the years, that once somebody has been found guilty and given a sentence, and they perform that sentence, they've paid their debt to society. But that's not true in our court system. You keep paying for it if you keep getting charged. Because when you look at a record, you sentence somebody, most people sentence somebody to a higher sentence than somebody with no record, right? And I argue that too to judges, but my thoughts are that maybe that's racist. And I'll tell you why I think that. Because when I represent people of color and minorities, they usually have more on their record than white people. So if this study is correct, police are charging and arresting minorities greater than white people, then it would stand to reason that minorities have more on their record, especially if they live in, let's say, certain areas of Springfield or Boston, minority areas, whereas the same people that live in communities like Wellesley and Long Meadow, those kids aren't getting charged the same way blacks and minorities are getting charged. And that may be one of the reasons why there's such a disparity in people being sent to prison, or minorities percentage-wise, than white people. Would you think that might be a reason?
I think it may very well be a reason. Many reasons.
So why wouldn't we think of maybe stopping that practice?
Well, I think the record is important. I don't think it's the only factor, and I think your point about reducing the importance of the record, given what the study says, has a lot of valid, you raise a valid issue. But what if, Councillor Jubenville, our houses of corrections and Department of Correction really worked their best of their ability, like we're doing in Hampden County right now, in reducing the return of people back to the life of crime? And that would stop that record from continuing to multiply.
Well, not if the police keep arresting black and minorities in a higher percentage than whites. So I get the system that is in place.
Right.
But the gatekeepers, it seems to me, have to be our judges. They have to be aware. They have to think about this. I think, that's my thoughts. Because they're the last ones to save it. They're the last ones to stop it.
I see many gatekeepers. I see you as a gatekeeper. I see the police officer on the street as a gatekeeper. I see the probation department, the judges, and then if incarcerated, the correctional staff. I think we all have to be gatekeepers.
I agree. But we only do here judges. We don't have police come in and put them under, questioning. But before I forget, DA Sullivan, very complimentary, loves you. Attorney Franco, Attorney O'Donnell, and Attorney Wilson had great things to say about you from Hoyoke. So you were asked some questions about the parole board. And in your day on the parole board, what did they usually do with second-degree lifers? Did they get parole in your day?
Some did. Yes.
Because I remember when I first started in this business where if somebody either was given a second-degree murder conviction or found second-degree, they were eligible for 15 years, and a lot of them got it. I think a lot more got it that didn't. But that's not the case today. I know of one case where a fella committed a murder and got a second. 45 years ago. Did 15 years, he got out on parole. He's been on parole for 33 years. $80 a month. He has obtained a master's degree from Boston University, has his own mental health company that he helps people all the time. And he can't get off that parole. He's 67 years old today. And one of the parole board said, well, he's got parole. So in other words, he should be happy with that. I said, well, how long does anybody get off parole? Well, yeah, we had one that was very sick, person who was dying. We let him off parole. So in your day, the people that were on parole for second degree, did they terminate at a certain point, depending on what the fella did or the woman did over the years?
I'm going to be honest with you. No.
No.
Takes a full board vote. So you need to get 4 votes out of 7 is my memory. I'm pretty sure it's still the case.
I mean, it seemed to me that somebody that did something good that long should be a role model for other inmates. You do this, your chance, you can get off parole, but you gotta do some stuff. But I don't see that, and we haven't had any pardons or commutations by Governor Baker. We had I think 4 or 5 in the last 3 months of Governor Patrick's term. And in your day and before your day, pardons and commutations were a regular event.
Well, they were a regular event for the parole board to hear them. But there's still, I believe, an extraordinary remedy.
Well, I looked at statistics in the 1970s at the council here, and the average, I'm not perfect on this, it was somewhere around 300 to 400 pardons a year given out. And nobody batted an eye. And most of them were people that had committed a crime when they were in their teens or early 20s. Whatever punishment they got, they did, and they went on to be good citizens for 20, 30, 40 years. And they put in for a pardon. Those are easy, aren't they? I don't know why I said that to the governor here. Well, those are easy.
I understand your point of view. I also think in the courts, we have an opportunity to seal records as well. So that provides some relief for people who have changed their life, or was a once in a lifetime occasion where they entered the criminal justice system.
It helps, but you know, what people tell me is the employer sees a sealed record and they assume that it's a very serious crime or a sex crime. So they don't get the job because of it. Councilor Ferrera brought up the training by court officers. And I was told by one of the fellas that went through that the way he described it to me was a boot camp that was probably more intense training than soldiers got before they stormed the beaches of Normandy. That they were making these officers do things that had no correlation with what job they were going to do when they got out. And I think when they're that heavy-handed, there is a percentage of people that take it seriously on the job, treat people like they were drill sergeants in the courtroom. And I've seen some of that from court officers. So when you're on the appeals court, maybe you'll have some juice to kind of have somebody look into this. I don't think state police officers or local police officers, from what I was told, are anywhere near trained or yelled at or threatened or whatever they do at this place. Court officer's job is a tough one, and sometimes you have to be ready for anything. But there's no excuse for not treating people that come into that building courteously. Some of this training, I fear, stops that. It makes these court officers act in a different way. So when you get up there to that lofty area of the appeals court, maybe the chief, get together with the chief and you can do something about this. Okay? The only last thing I have for you is we've been fighting the war on drugs since 1970. 51 years. You have any idea what it's cost us in taxpayer funds?
I don't.
I read it's over $1 trillion. We're still doing things the same way we did in 1970. President Biden said he's bringing back the troops from Afghanistan because it's been 20 years. I think 51 years is probably doing something different or stopping or something. It's not working. More drugs in anywhere you can buy in Massachusetts. Think the war on drugs has gone on too long?
I don't know if war on drugs is the right way to look at it. I think the fight is to get people who are addicted back to a lifestyle where they're clean and sober. It's the fight. For the
Well,
people.
I don't
And
think we're going to do that by giving them criminal records, locking them up. I don't think that works. My opinion. You look at the collateral damage of this war on drugs. Search and seizure motions. We've just about gutted the Constitution on search and seizure. Most cases that I read are cases involving drugs. They've changed the banking system because of it. Now, when you go to a bank and you ask to take out $1,000 in $100 bills, now maybe I'm just paranoid a little bit, but I think the teller's thinking that I might be doing drugs or making the money on drugs. Crime lab scandal, Boston and Western Mass, all to do with drugs. Maybe up in that appeals court, you can come up with some formula that we can stop putting people in cages because they have addictions. I don't think a lot of, well, I shouldn't say a lot. I know of some judges that do not understand that. They just don't understand it.
I understand your point of view.
Yeah. I've been to a bunch of drug courts. And in a few of them, I saw the judge. Did you ever do a drug court?
No.
I saw the judge ask probation officer, so-and-so, how's so-and-so? Well, had a relapse 3 weeks ago. The docket. Right. I was like a guest, so I said something to the judge. I said, why did you put those people in the lockup and what are you going to do with them? And I want to sentence them to 5 days. Because they had a relapse? Yeah. So they're probably going to lose their job. They haven't. They're married and they're renting. They're probably going to lose an apartment. But I said, they did this 3 and 4 weeks ago, but they still showed up here today. And the programs they were in didn't throw them out of the program because they understood addiction. But I don't think some of our courts understand that. Anyway, I wish you the best in your new career, your new adventure. I think you'll make a wonderful appeals court judge. I know you're bold. You got to be bold up there, okay? You got to put, reach out and be bold. Do a great job.
Thank
Be
you,
wonderful.
Councilor Juvenile.
My pleasure to vote for you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair,
Yes,
thank you.
thank you, Bob. Counselor Devaney, any questions?
It's been said the last shall be first, somewhere they said that, right? I don't have a poker face, I've been smiling since I first saw your name presented. I got to tell you, when I look back, 23 years, my grandchildren have gone through college. I don't understand it because I'm 35, but that's okay. But, you know, you did it the old-fashioned way. No political contributions. All your relatives aren't on the bench. I couldn't be more proud that, you know, I voted for you years ago. And, you know, there's one other chair of the parole board that I hold in high esteem, and that's Judge Michael Pomerol. You two did things. You changed things. And I saw that in my 21 years. And I want to thank you especially for your commitment to commutations and what am I thinking of? Because I've been asking for years for it. People that have, you know, gone through life and they probably stole money off a, you know, off a newspaper box when they were 18 years old, and they're looking for a pardon, and we don't get them. And I ask, and we don't get them. Why? I don't understand it, you know? But I want to thank you for that. And I have to mention Judge Pomerol too, because he has done that. First of all, I do want to, and I ask everybody to just tell me the process of getting here this time. You went before the Judicial Nominating Commission. 21 are appointed by the governor. The awesome responsibility to choose who they're going to interview or who they're going to reject and who they're going to recommend for clerk-magistrate or for a judgeship. They have authority that we don't have. I only have one person that I vote for. We don't even know how many were interviewed. Might have been just that one. We don't know. So having said that, how many of these 21 lawyers were there to interview you?
So there were quite a few because it was during, and still is during the pandemic. And so it was a Zoom with 2 or 3 TV screens, and there were quite a few counselors. And I don't know that given the time that everybody had enough time, but I was asked many questions by many JNC members.
And there are how many?
I didn't count, but
Approximate.
I'm just gonna guess, Counselor Devaney. Well, it seemed to me a lot.
That's okay. No, you know, the point is, and it's not directed to you in any way, shape, or form, but the reason I bring this up, because there was in Governor Salucci, God rest his soul, he had a chair of the JNC who got those 21 lawyers together and told them, if you don't go to the hearing, you don't vote on the nominee. We have 10, 11, 12 people, never saw the nominee, they didn't show up, and they vote. So I just want to vent. So I'm sorry I'm venting for you, but I just want to tell you the position I'm in, and I can't do anything about it, and it's wrong. So anyway, you did apply to the Superior Court.
I did.
Tell me about that.
So the application process was the same as before, an anonymous application with the last 4 digits of your social security number as the identifier. And you took out anything that would identify you, whether a name of a law firm or et cetera. And I was screened through to have an interview with the Judicial Nominating Commission, and I was very happy to have that opportunity. And I did have an interview, but I did withdraw my name.
Well, who am I to say, but I'd rather see you in the appeals court.
Well, thank
You
you.
know, you've made so many decisions. 30 years, this is what I want. 30 years, someone that knows the law, that, and the people that sent letters, they've known you 25 years. We've got a letter from who you were a law clerk for 30 years ago. And he knew even then, he said that you, no one I have ever known exceeds, and few can equal her intelligence, poise, commitment to public service. As a law clerk, she exhibited superb analytical skills and writing ability, both traits that will serve her well on the appeal court. Her work habits, her temperament, her knowledge of law, her outstanding just goes on. Every one of these have known you 20, 25 years, Elizabeth Hanna and Justice Conley, and they all, say the same thing, Becky Michaels and Alina Rona and sheriffs, and they all say the same thing about you, that besides your knowledge, that you have the compassion, you listen. That's very important. You listen to people. And I know you sat with me for 4 hours and you're a good listener. But anyway, I do want to say too, that I think it should be noted, and I think it's outstanding, that you created the Western Massachusetts Veterans Treatment Court. How important that is. So many of them are suffering, and we don't see the outward signs. And establishing the emerging young adult court of hope. That's terrific. Tell me about that.
And Counselor Devaney, I just want to say that I can't take full credit for any of that. That's a team effort by District Attorney Sullivan and District Attorney Gallooni and my fellow colleagues in probation. And they're both specialty courts that identify particular needs, whether it be with traumatic brain injuries for our veterans coming back and having mentors that are veterans so that they understand what they're going through and support them even when times are difficult. And in a very similar but different approach with the young adults to try to stop what we can see is happening, which is a lifetime of incarceration and tragedy. And these are people that just need a lot of support and a lot of counseling. And we hope that they'll be able to live a good life.
Right. Do you follow up on the Veterans Court, how successful it is? What is the percentage of they have been helped and they've gone on with their lives?
So it's been incredibly successful. It's being led by Justice Lori McLeod out of the Holyoke District Court. It's a combined effort with the Northwestern District Attorney's Office and the Hampden County District Attorney's Office, which I think is very unusual. Both DAs are 100% behind it, and they've done extremely well. They have more people in that court in Western Mass than any other in the state, and I credit that team. They have a terrific chief probation officer by the name of Sean McBride, who does so much good.
That's wonderful. I have followed up on the drug court, and I've gone to their graduations, and I sit in the back and tears come to my eyes because you see these people come in all ages and they speak about how they got there or where they came from. It's amazing. And so, people have to know those courts are important. They really, really are, So I know you've done a lot of writings and a page full here, but one of them that I was quite interested in, because Lee Gottenberg called and he couldn't say enough things about you. And as you know, Lee was appointed for an unexpired term for 4 months and was replaced. And there's many throughout this Commonwealth that are in shock. And he still sends us changes in law, and he's just so interested. And I know he still advises the parole board God love him, but he couldn't say enough about you, and I want you to know. So can you, I know you wrote a lot of, of things with him. Is there something that comes to mind that is memorable to you with Lee?
Anytime I get to work with Lee Gartenberg, it's a great honor. He's incredibly just sensitive and brilliant, and there's nothing that he won't do. I mean, he works till all hours. He sends out those glossaries and updates, and does trainings and travels all over still. And so we did write one together for an MCLE about the collateral consequences of criminal conduct. Much of what Councillor Jubenville was talking about, of all the after effects and harm, whether it's in housing, or it's in an ability to adopt a child, or it's in not getting college scholarships, and the impediments once somebody has been convicted or incarcerated. And Lee's an expert in that field too, working at the jail in Middlesex for so long.
Well, your writing skills will really come in handy up at the appeals court. And I can't be more proud that you're going to be serving with Judge Green. You know, I had the honor of voting for him twice. So it really is great to see you up there with him. Now, I'm going to ask you something that kind of left field, okay? Because I'm full-time, so I investigate everything, what's going on in the different courts. So this was a few years back, but this came up before the appeals court. And I'm going to give you a little trial now for your court. There was a man walking with two dogs. One dog was on a leash, and the German Shepherd, the other dog was a German Shepherd, was loose, just walking with him. This woman was on her lawn with a little dog. The German Shepherd rushed to the little dog and really tore him apart. Now, he survived. She went to a vet, and it took a while, but he did recover, and the cost was $4,000. So she went to court, and the judge ruled the dog was property. How would you rule when it went to the appeals court?
Well, Councillor Devaney, I would tell you I would recuse myself because of my love for
You got 4
animals.
rescue dogs. I gave you a softball question.
But as much as I don't like to hear it, the law is clear. Dogs are property. I think that would be affirmed.
Well, the appeals court ruled that the dog was not property, and they had to pay $4,000. So that was good. You had right off the bat, I mean, in your first few years as a, talking about cases, and you were involved in 2 really cases that we heard about. You want to talk about those?
And I'm not sure, as a judge or during.
No, when you were assistant district attorney.
So I did have the great honor to second seat 2 first-degree murder trials with now Justice David Ross, who just retired. And I worked with him in the district attorney's office, and it was a murder for hire and very complicated case in which the heirs of the Big Y supermarket, one was murdered by an individual at the request of his wife. And so they were 4 to 6 week trials in the Superior Court. And I had the great honor to assist Judge Ross, then Prosecutor Ross, in those cases. Nobody has his talent or work ethic.
Well, what I have seen as you as a judge, the compassion you have shown, especially for people who have been driving under the influence, and you've changed their lives. Do you want to talk about any of them or one of them, about how you were successful and that person was exonerated at the end of after they looked into all of the case?
And so I would say in the treatment court, Counselor Devaney. We have one individual who's close to graduation, and in the beginning, when the plea was occurring, she couldn't make it through the basic questions in the colloquy, asking if she had had anything to drink in the last 24 hours. And she had to come back, and to me, it was an indicator that she needed a lot of help. And she's been sober now for 18 months, and she's been an unbelievable member of our treatment court, and I'm really proud.
The one I was thinking of, probably mispronounced it, Zeiniger.
Thank you. So that was a case in which I hope it will give me a perspective if I'm fortunate enough to be on the appeals court. And I was in the district court, and it had to do with business records and whether or not they were admissible. And I think that perspective of having the jurors looking at you and the attorneys wanting for you to make an instant ruling of whether something should be admissible or whether it does not meet the business rule requirements, exceptions to the hearsay rule, is something that I'm very proud of. And I did make a finding, and I did admit those records. They were Office of Alcohol Testing records, and that was upheld by the Supreme Judicial Court. And it's something that, when I look back, tells me about the great challenge of being in the trial court and how you have to just make decisions with the best of your abilities and continue to work on education.
Now, as a judge, you've had to make, you had to struggle sometimes to make a decision. It has to be difficult. I know there's a lot, but is there one that comes to mind that it was one of the hardest that you ever had before you to decide?
One of the hardest cases for me as a district court judge is vehicular homicide. The standard is negligence. So it's not something where somebody necessarily intended the consequences. They failed to use ordinary care, and it resulted in a death. And everyone in that room wants the victim back alive, including the person who was behind the wheel. So I had a case not that far ago, and even during COVID times, that was a plea. And it's just tragic. 21 years old, is on the back of the hood of a car driving, and the friend was under the influence, and he hit the brakes, and this young man hit his head, and that resulted in his eventual death. And determining what justice is, I listened to the mother and father, and to the sister and the brother of the victim, forgave and supported this defendant, and wanted a sentence to be imposed that was different than the prosecutor's sentence. And it's a struggle. But I went along with what the mother and father thought was justice for their child, and what they thought that he would want for the friend. But it was hard.
That's why I know on the appeals court, you'll be able to make those quick decisions. You've had to do it all these years. And I really, everything about you, your age, your life experience, everything you bring to the bench is what I look for. Now I'm going to mention, and I did talk about it when we met, the Fellsacre case. Okay. I was involved in this, so I know. My husband, a friend of ours, my husband was a firefighter, his firefighter friend, talked with me because it might have come up before the governor's council. If the governor voted yes, it would come before us. So I had got deeply into this, and I thought I knew everything until our friend, very close friend, talked with me. He had me in tears. His 4-year-old little girl went to that daycare. And she started crying. She didn't want to go. And she was really very upset. And a 4-year-old can't always express why they're upset. And she would come home with someone else's panties. Maybe her panties would be inside out. And then there was blood in her pants. They brought her to the doctor. She went to the hospital. I don't want to get into all the details, but it was definite abuse. And you know what's sad? She's a beautiful girl. She's a grown-up woman, and she's never had a relationship with anyone. She's broken up a couple of times when she's been engaged. People think children get over sexual trauma. Never, never. And so he said to me, Marilyn, please don't vote yes. Don't let Tukey out. And I have no evidence, but everything that I looked for and I read everything, in my heart, I believe his mother and his sister were innocent. And I believe it. I don't think they knew because they had another little room that he would bring them in. And I think of that and I think, what decisions a judge has to make, really, you know? And so he finished his term. I think he only had a year or something, wasn't it? But I'll tell you, that made such an impression on me to realize you have the evidence that's brought before you, and you have to determine who's truthful and who isn't, and whose lives have been affected. And it's still upsetting to me to talk about her. And so she's a forensic specialist now. It's beautiful, beautiful girl inside and out. So here we are, but I have to tell you, I couldn't be more pleased. And I think the governor should get a message that you should be a role model. I don't expect everyone to be of the caliber that you are, but let's look for them. Let's look for the age, not someone 40. I don't want someone 30 years or 40 years as a clerk-magistrate. And I just know you'll be great. And I know that they'll be welcoming you. And I'm very proud of the people that I did vote on, especially Judge Green. He's just the best. But it is a diverse group this time. It really is diverse. So, I mean, when I think of I think what you bring to the bench, what we don't see is all your years, 10 years on the parole board and what you saw. And I saw it all. I saw Sinelli, 3 15-year life sentences. Okay. And I talked to the chair. I'll have to admit I didn't vote for him. Okay. And I talked to him the day after that he killed the officer. And you know, we talk about, and it's sad, we have some bad officers, but they're the minority of the hundreds and thousands that we have. We don't talk about the police officers that are killed every day. And I've gone to those funerals, and I went to that funeral in Woburn. And you know, I asked the chair of the parole board, what was the protocol when he was let go? And I said, did he see his parole? Did he see his parole officer, probation officer? What did you do? Oh, yes, he had a job with his uncle, and he paid rent to him, and we gave him a plumbing job. He was learning, and all of this, none of the above, none of it. So for me, this has been an education, because now I'm looking, what are they doing on the parole board? What are they expecting when they let these people out? So it is important. And just recently, I was very pleased that they refused this young woman who sexually assaulted children, 2-year-olds, and burnt them with cigarettes all over their body and all these horrible things. And they didn't parole her. But unfortunately, they got that new rule, 1 week off a week. So she got off last month. So nothing is ever perfect, but, you know, I just think your experience there in helping people to reentry in society, that's so important. So you saw all of that. So you bring a different perspective than the usual person we see going for a judge. You know, I keep on saying Mike Pomeroy because I put you two in the same box because he had all these programs that were mandated to, you know, for high school and you know, anger management and all that. You did all those things too. So I'm just so pleased. I could talk about other cases, but I know this has been a long day for you. And, you know, you've heard questions from everyone else and I'm last, but I'm just so pleased. I mean, when I think of 23 years and I'm not just saying that you look great. You know, I don't know, you know, you've done the right things for the years, but I know the challenge on the appeals court and you have to think on your feet fast and you'll do it. You have been doing it. And all I can say is that I'll be very happy to be voting for you. And this was a good appointment. Please, God, let the governor have more. You know?
Thank you, Counselor Devaney.
Thank you so much for applying and that, but you got to the right court. The
Thank you.
Superior Court wouldn't have been for you.
Well, actually, I'm last. And I just want to go over a couple of things that, you know, Counselor Devaney has been complaining about the fact that an assistant clerk who was designated as acting clerk did not get a interview. But the way that the system works, the first part of the review of the applications is totally blind. So the JNC would not have known that this was the acting clerk, would not have known anything, and would have been looking at a blind application. So the fact she didn't get, or he didn't get an interview was based upon the fact that the part of the application that they did review did not bode as well as the other ones who did get an interview, and the ones that they would have seen the second part where they would have known that that person was an assistant clerk. And that's the way it should be. It should be a blind questionnaire because that way it's not a popularity contest. It's there on the merits. So I thank you for bringing that up as far as the process. Now, is it true that the first day that you were a judge, you forgot your robe?
Yes. It was, but I didn't have a robe quite yet because the Bar Association was giving me a robe. And my swearing in was later, but there was a judge out in Chicopee who was kind enough to let me borrow one. Reminded me about that.
Any chance she gets? That was me. Can you hear me?
I can, it was you, Judge Hurley, and you gave me a robe and gave me lots of advice too.
Well, I guess you must have been good following it because here you are today. And I usually don't make predictions about what's going to happen next week when we vote, but with the number of counselors who have said that they're going to support you and vote for you, I'm going to make a prediction that you're going to go to the appeals court.
Very honored.
And it's very well deserved. I think you're going to do a great job. I'm mad at you for deserting the district court, but I also know that you like a challenge. And I'm, I guess, the same kind of person you are because I've changed jobs a lot too. And I think you're going to do a great job. And the fact that you have adopted and rescued so many dogs over the years. And my great observation of you is that your best quality is your heart and your kindness and your care and concern about other people. And that's why you did a great job on the parole board. That's why you did a great job as a district court judge, and then the regional administrative judge, and the person that's taken on so many creative jobs in terms of creating new types of courts to give people who come into the justice system a chance to basically remake themselves and have a chance at being great citizens. So it will be my honor next week to put your name in a nomination for consideration and vote by the council. And I predict you're going to have a unanimous vote. And I predict that you are going to do a great job on the appeals court. So it's been my honor and pleasure to be your governor's counselor, your friend, and your cohort on the district court. You're a great person and you're going to make a great judge. So thank you. And
Councilor Hurley, thank you for everything.
I hope you're going to buy all the people that you brought down with you some lunch because it's 1 o'clock and I'm declaring this hearing is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to go offline now. Thank you, everybody.